Welcome to the lecture for Chapter 15 that looks at the use of radio and television in PR. Research shows that radio reaches 80% of Americans daily, and television reaches 95% of Americans daily. Producing messages for audio and visual formats requires a different set of skills than simply writing messages. Today we will spend a few minutes discussing how to create effective key messages for radio and television, and how you can book guest appearances and conduct product placements. Let's begin by discussing audio news releases. News releases for the radio are known as audio news releases, or ANRs. ANRs are cost-effective ways to reach a large amount of people. When writing them, you should emphasize short sentences that average 10 words and can be easily understood by a listener. ANRs usually are only 125 words long and have to have a conversational feel that is easy to listen to. Remember, we write differently than we speak, so that needs to be taken into account when creating ANRs. The most effective way to release an ANR to the press is to provide a recording of the ANR spoken by someone with a strong radio voice. There are two formats you can follow for this. The first is an actuality. This is a full reading of the ANR by a person with a professional voice that is not identified. The second is a soundbite. This approach includes having an announcer introduce the topic of the ANR, and then a soundbite provides a comment from a satisfied customer or a company spokesperson. Providing a soundbite to the press can work well because then the media outlet has a choice of using the entire clip or just the soundbite part of it. When writing an ANR, there are a few things that you should consider. The first is timeliness. Obviously, the topics of ANRs should relate to a current season or social trend. The second is localization, which means that the ANR should include a local angle. The third is humanization. All ANRs should show how everyday people are effective or involved in the topic. And finally, you should have some visual appeal to your ANR. Stories should provide vivid language and provide compelling sound bites to provide depth and an interest to the ANR. PR personnel that work for nonprofit organizations sometimes prepare public service announcements for radio stations. A PSA is an unpaid announcement that promotes the programs of government or voluntary agencies or that serves the public interest. PSAs can be 10, 15, 20, 30, or 60 seconds long. A PR professional should submit several PSAs on the same subject at differing lengths, so the radio station has some flexibility with how they can air them. Although almost any topic can be talked about, local community issues and events usually receive the most airtime, followed by children's issues. When delivering a PSA, the textbook recommends taking several steps. The first is mailing a script to the station's public service director. You should also send a CD with announcements of varying lengths. You should provide an 800 number, and also you can provide downloads from a sponsoring organization's web server. Another PR tactic is the Radio Media Tour, or RMT. This occurs when a PR practitioner books multiple radio interviews for a company spokesperson. The interviews can be conducted all over the country with various radio stations, all while the spokesperson is in a hotel room or at home. They are a cost-effective way to reach millions of people. It is important, however, to be familiar with the radio station before you book the interview. You should also think about how you can link the RMT to a holiday or current news angle. And finally, most RMTs occur in the morning hours, so you have to choose a spokesperson who can be awake and have the stamina to conduct hours of interviews. Besides radio, television also provides numerous opportunities for PR strategies. You probably remember video news releases from our discussion of ethics and VNRs in Chapter 3. VNRs can be expensive. Their costs can range from $20,000 to $50,000. but they are being used more and more because of their flexibility to be used on air or as a webcast. A traditional VNR includes a few items. It should include a 90-second news report with voiceover narration. It should also include B-roll, which is video only, that has no narration. This gives a media outlet the chance to record their own narration using their own commentators. You should provide 2 to 3 minutes of B-roll. You should also have a clear identification of the video source in order to avoid any ethical issues. And finally, you should include a script, spokespeople information, media contacts, extra sound bites, and background information that is provided electronically. Research shows that the typical television station runs an average of 137 public service announcements a week. TV PSAs are done similarly to how radio PSAs are done. They need to be short, to the point, and professionally produced. All television PSAs need a visual element with photos or artwork on screen at any given time. Sometimes PSAs can be done as a talking head. This is when a spokesperson or celebrity talks into the camera for 30 seconds. This is a simple way to do a PSA, but it can be just as powerful as doing one with photos and graphics. Another PR strategy using the television are satellite media tours. A satellite media tour, or SMT, is defined as a series of pre-booked, one-on-one interviews from a fixed location via satellite with a series of television journalists or talk show hosts. These can be done from a television studio or from a specific location. When you conduct one of these, you do want to include relevant angles for each market you pitch. You should use a visually appealing background or set. You should get stations involved by sending items that will help them promote the interview. And as a PR professional, you should avoid continual follow-ups with the producer if he or she says they'll have to think it over. You will only annoy them. You should provide producers the who, why, what, and when up front, and use credible, knowledgeable spokespeople who are confident and personable. So far in this lecture, we have discussed types of materials that PR professionals can create to disseminate messages about topics, products, or people. Oftentimes, however, your role as a PR professional is to get a person you represent on a radio or TV program. Talking to people over the phone or in person is the best way to get this done. Before the pitch, however, there are a few things that need to be done. You should always do your homework. You need to be familiar with the show, its content, and the audience the show reaches. You should watch the show and study its format before you make a pitch to make sure your client would be appropriate for the show. You need to make sure your client is prepared. You should coach the client to focus on 2 to 3 key messages. You should also make sure your client knows that he needs or she needs to be brief and to the point. Statements should be kept to 30 seconds or less. And finally, you need to make sure your client is relaxed and able to speak casually. If your client isn't a person but is a product, product placement is a great way to get publicity for an item. There are several ways to get a product placement in television, movies, and even game shows. Getting a product on a television show or in a great publicity, but it can also be expensive. Game shows, however, can provide a lot of promotion for however much the product costs. If a game show has 3 million viewers and the product you gave to the show was only a few $100s, that provides a great cost per viewer benefit. Besides placing products, PR professionals can also get TV shows to write about a certain topic. The National Campaign to Prevent Teen Pregnancy works to get teen pregnancy into television programming so it can be a topic that is in the public dialogue. Issues placement is used to educate the public about social issues or health problems, but can do so in an entertaining way. Thank you for listening to the lecture for Chapter 15 that discusses how public relations is conducted on radio and television. Today we covered audio news releases, public service announcements, radio media tours, video news releases, satellite media tours, guest appearances, product placement, and issues placement. Although radio and television stations might not immediately want to air your content, it is a way to disseminate messages that reach millions of people if pitched the right way. Hopefully this chapter introduced you to additional techniques and strategies you can use in the practice of PR. Thank you for listening.